I can hear you.
Charlie, do you have a timer with you?
I do have a timer. Yes.
Okay. Can you put the time for 25 minutes? Is it 25 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Are you ready? Charlie, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's start. Charlie, can you go to your data model?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you look at the price book, the OWDs, you said use and no use. Is the no use for external users?
Yes. No uses for external users.
Is there a value called no use for external users on price book?
I forgot the precise. There's three values. One is use. One is read. What is the other one? No use. I think it's no use. But it's basically no access.
No, it's okay. Good. Jay, do you want to go next?
Yeah. So follow-up question on that, Charlie. How the security would be controlled on the product and the price book? Which object exactly you're talking about here?
Okay. Thank you. So when the investment plan options are made, or when investment plans are made, they're gonna. I believe my assumption is that internal people will come here to select the product for the client from a particular price book, so they get all the access they need. As for external people, I would allow them to see the product, to see what product it is. So I give them read on product. As for price book, they do not need to add anything to price book.
Sorry. So walk me through the process. So someone goes, let's say the investment fund selection, they select the product. Now what would happen after the product selection? They would select the product first, or they would select the price book first?
I see. That's a great question. If we assume that we have to allow client to be able to select a fund, then we have to somehow make price book available to them. There's no known way to share a price book with customer community license, because price book is shared manually. You cannot manually share to a customer community license user. So therefore, we would need to create a user-friendly, efficient customer interface to allow them to select the products, and we will fix a price book for them. Basically, their contract or their account will fix the price book for them. We always use the same price book, and then we give them a customer UI to be able to select a product, and the controller will run in system mode without sharing.
So what is the advantage of using the price book entry in the product in that case? Why you have chosen to go with the standard object?
Okay, that's a great question. For this scenario itself, there's no advantage to use product and the price book than to use simply a fund, a custom object. But in the real life of a financial company, a fund or investment option is a product for them. So my assumption is that in the real world, this is still valuable for them.
So how are you going to fix the price book for the customer?
We can have a lookup from account to price book.
So can we do that?
Can you create a lookup to the price book?
Yes, from account, we can create a lookup to price book. We cannot create a custom lookup to price book entry anymore, but we can create a lookup to price book.
Mm-hmm.
To be even better, I would use if we need to do that, I would use the contract object. Contract has a lookup to price book, so we do not need to add anything.
Okay.
Okay, we can go next question.
To advise a custom object versus a price book in product here.
Excuse me, I missed the question, Swetha.
When would you advise a custom object versus a product or price book here?
If this company is really as simple as this scenario itself, I'll go ahead and scratch all these three objects, just put fun over there.
Okay. Can you go to your system landscape?
Yes.
Yeah. So you explained that you are going to use SSO, right? So, but you didn't explain how you are going to set this up. Can you explain how do you set SSO in Salesforce?
Yes. To set it up, we're going to create an app in Okta, and then we download the metadata from Okta, and then in Salesforce we're going to create a single sign-on setting. First, we will enable SAML sign-on. Then we will create a single sign-on setting using the metadata. The key data in the metadata is a certificate from the IDP. It's a public certificate, and then the login endpoint. And then once when we set that up, once we set it up, we will go to my domain page and select that as the login method.
So who will sign that certificate? The public certificate you meant? Can it be self-signed?
The certificate on the single sign-on setting, that is the public certificate of the Okta server, so that when SAML assertion comes to us in the future, it's assigned by the private key of Okta, and used with the public key with the public certificate, we can validate the signature.
So can it be self-signed certificate? That's the question I'm asking. The certificate that you are going to install and upload in Salesforce to enable SSO, can it be self-signed certificate?
I never looked into that. I do not know, but I don't think Okta would use a self-signed certificate for us.
Yeah, that is the question I'm trying to ask. What kind of certificate? Do you know that?
I do not know that.
Okay. You also explained that you between ETL and JWT, Salesforce, you are going to use JWT. Why JWT? Why would you not consider any other flow?
Oh, okay. For system integration, it's easiest to load a certificate, and I also have MuleSoft in mind. I know JWT is one of the supported ways to system integration with MuleSoft.
Why not web server flow?
Why not web server flow? Usually for system integration, we use API on the user. We do not allow people to log in. So web server flow need us to go there to make that not API only, and then log in, and then it's a lot of changes. So the traditional way, the most common way, is still JWT.
Okay, thank you. Can you explain how you are going to set this MTLS in Salesforce?
Yes. So let's look at the direction from Salesforce to ESB. Okay. Now in this case, Salesforce is on the client side. To set off mutual TLS, we use name the credential. On the name of the credential, we first select the certificate. That certificate is going to be the mutual TLS certificate, and then we enable JWT authentication method, and then select a JWT signing certificate. So there are two certificates involved when we go from Salesforce to ESB. And the ESB side, we would need to load the public key of the mutual TLS certificate into the trust store of ESB.
Follow-up question on this one. You said the last time it has to be CA signed. Can it be a self-signed certificate?
Now from Salesforce to ESB, the certificate can be self-signed as long as the ESB side is willing to accept a certificate. We are willing to use a self-signed. But to set up the other direction, mutual TLS from outside the world into Salesforce, we have to use a CA signed certificate. But I also remember the way I set up a single sign-on between two Salesforce. The experience told me that a self-signed certificate is okay for single sign-on, for single sign-on setup.
Okay, you have used SSO with MFA. Can you explain the whole flow? How are you going to use SSO with MFA, and in terms of user experience, how it will look like?
Yes. First, the setup. We are implementing FMA in Okta, and so in Salesforce we are going to put the Okta single sign-on method as in the high assurance column on the session settings page, and so that when user come in, they will not be challenged again. So now come to the user experience. When the user come to Salesforce, they are going to say Okta single sign-on. They click on that, they log into to Okta. Okta will challenge them with the second factor. After they put in the second factor, Okta send them to Salesforce with the SAML assertion, and Salesforce notice that, well, this is a high assurance authentication method, so it does not challenge with another factor, and then allow the user in.
So you explain and you have drawn SSO flow as well, but you have not mentioned any attributes which gets passed through, so can you explain what attributes you are going to pass when you are doing the login first, and what happens? Can you explain all the attributes which are being used? Yeah.
Okay, so there are no user-related attributes in the SAML request. It's basically this is a request from me, Salesforce, to you, Okta, who is the issuer, who is the issuer, who is the audience. And then when SAML assertion comes back, it's gonna the primary things are the attributes of the user, including the subject, which is username. Federation ID is the best practice, and the user attributes. And then of course, a signature signed by the private key of Okta.
So in your first response, when you are sending the SAML request and relay state, where are you going to send this information?
Relay state is relay state is sent with the SAML request in the post request from Salesforce via the browser to Okta.
So it would be Okta login URL, right?
To the Okta login URL.
Okay. And what do we do at SF stage when you have got, like, I can see SAML assertion relay state, right? So when you receive the SAML assertion at SF at Salesforce, what happens there? And
what
how
happens
do you?
there?
Yeah.
Pardon. You can finish your question.
Yeah. Can you explain what happens there? How do you validate the federation ID and all those things?
Yes. So first, Salesforce will validate the SAML structure to make sure everything is there, and also it will use the loaded certificate on the single sign-on setting to make sure it is indeed signed by Okta, and then it will get the federation ID from the agreed upon field, and then use the federation ID to find out whether there's an existing user matching this federation ID. If yes, call the opted user record in JIT handler. If there is a JIT handler, if there's none, then move on. If there's no user with matching federation ID, it will if there's a JIT handler, it will call the new user method. If this is none, it will reject the user.
So JIT handler that you are mentioning, is that going to be a standard one, or you are going to have the custom one, and what interface you are going to use?
Okay, here I do not see the specific need to use a JIT handler if we assume that Okta is doing user provisioning for us.
So do you recommend JIT handler or not in this scenario?
In this scenario, I'm not. I'm assuming that Okta is going to handle user provisioning with API integration.
On the identity piece also, you had mentioned for external users you are going to use login discovery, right?
Yes.
Can you explain how that works?
Yes. On the community login and registration page, I'm going to select the login method to be login discovery, and then I can I can get sample code from the web and modify the login discovery handler to return the proper login method for the user. And I recommend to use to support password login. So I'm gonna support, let's say, in this age, almost everyone have a cell phone. So the first method I would like to support is to send a code to their mobile phone, and they type in the code, they can get in. I also recommend to support email also.
What are the methods available for login discovery that you are going to use?
Email, SMS, and
the methods. I'm not talking about the attribute. I'm talking about the methods. You mentioned that you are going to just copy the sample code from the Google. What will be there? What are the different methods which we are going to call? Do you know?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Here are the popular ones, not exhaustive, right? Email, SMS, and here we're not using single sign-on, or we're not using social sign-on. If we use single sign-on, then we can also support any number of social sign-on methods. We can, of course, the default login is also supported. Salesforce login.
Did Swetha, anyone?
So you've suggested Sales Cloud licenses. Which components of Sales Cloud licenses are you using here?
Yes, let's take a look. In the data model, we are using contract is a Sales Cloud, price book and product is Sales Cloud, and that's about it. Not heavily used. If I wanted to avoid these standard objects, I can.
In going back to your org strategy, you've suggested a single org strategy with 20 million customers. How do you address scalability?
Yes. So it's this based on my real. I made an assumption based on my real life experience. So most people are like me, rarely go to check their financial account, especially when they come through an employer. So I'm assuming that only 1/10 of the users log in. Every user log in to Salesforce once a year. So with that, every month we only get less than 2 million of users logging in. CC customer community login license will be accommodate this many users. The maximum CC login is 10 million, but with the login license, we can accommodate more users.
What if a user or a group of users log in higher than your anticipated number?
Yes,
how do you address this?
Yes, that will be a good problem, a growth pain. So there are two paths to go. One is that we can enhance this with a public with another website, and then only handle the essential things in Salesforce to reduce the login into Salesforce. Another is to use multi-org. And given the importance of Customer 360, I would recommend to create a website to work with Salesforce. And given that we are already using AWS in our system landscape, I recommend to create that website in AWS.
So you're steering away from Salesforce and proposing an external website outside of Salesforce platform.
That's one way to scale up. If you want to use Salesforce, we can also consider Heroku.
So, Charlie, what is your final solution? So let's assume that the total number of login are more than what you're anticipating.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going with AWS or are you going to go with Heroku?
I'm going with AWS.
Okay. So if you go with the AWS, how you're going to handle the security related requirements?
Thank you. This is a great question. When users go to AWS, suppose they need to log in. How they are going to log in? We cannot use Salesforce as the client identity hub. I would introduce Auth0, which is part of Okta also nowadays. And the client identity will be handled by Auth0. and then Salesforce use that the website on AWS would use that to authenticate the users, and the Salesforce can config Auth0 as the OIDC provider.
So that is about the login security. How about the record level security? The customer should only be able to view their own records, etc. How you would be handling that?
Then the website would have to have to handle record level security, just like we have to do that in Salesforce.
So when you say website, can you explain a little bit more in detail how that would work?
Yes, in AWS we can use we can create a server and there use any number of SPA technologies these days, single page app, and give the client a web page, and then have a web server to support that.
But that web server would be doing what? They would be making a call out to the directly Salesforce, ESB. How that whole handshaking would be working, and where the record filtering, etc., would be happening?
Integration with Salesforce will be handled by via ESB.
Okay, that means the security needs to be handled at the ESB level, or that needs to handle at the website level?
It will be handled by each application.
Okay. Okay, I think we can go. We just have a few more minutes. So can you go on the security accessibility requirement?
Yes.
And so the requirement number 1 in the accessibility. Yes. So let me see. So question to you: how the assistants in your data model? Can you go back on your data model?
Yes.
How you are managing the assistants? Maybe in the role hierarchy. Open your role hierarchy. Sorry.
Role hierarchy. Yes, the assistants under each sales rep role is an assistant role.
Okay, and when someone needs an access, how you're giving an access to assistants to an account? So the requirement number 1.
We put them in the account team.
And do you see any implication around that solution? How you're handling the team management? Someone gets added to the role, someone gets removed from the role. How you're handling all those situations?
Yes, because in this model, a system user owns the accounts. So when assistants change teams, all we need to do is to remove them from the original account teams and add them to their new teams.
And how that would happen? What is the whole process?
We can leverage the default account team feature, and when they join a new sales rep, and we can remove them from the default team of their original rep, and then add the assistant to the default account team of the new rep.
No, so let's say someone resigns from company and that person gets removed from the role hierarchy. Now, what would happen? How that would propagate to all the existing accounts and everything? Are you going to do any operation that side? And if someone gets added to the team, how you're handling that part?
Yes. If someone resign from this company, they will be disabled to at the IDP so that they cannot log in. And in Salesforce, with Okta deprovisioning, they are going to be become inactive users. They would not have access anymore. Then we can have a batch job in Salesforce to remove them from the account teams they are in. And because they do not own account records, so there's no changing of a lot of shared records on that.
Exactly. One question: if the user is already got deactivated, why do you need to remove them from account team?
Just for the cleanness of records.
Okay. And what would you do if the new user gets added into the team?
When a new user get added to a team, they would already assume they already get access to the system, get the proper profile and a role, and then we would need the sales rep to add them to the default team, and also if the rep want to add them want them to handle any account, they need to add them to the account teams.
So, Charlie, what you're saying is whenever the user would be deactivated, someone will go manually and will search for where all that person has access, and he will remove the person's access from those accounts. It may be 100 accounts, thousands accounts, right?
Mhm.
So, how are you going to remove those?
Yes, we can use a batch job to remove them from account teams.
So you will have a batch running, which will run maybe every day, which will check, okay, which all users are being deactivated today. Should I remove them for all the users or not? From
Yes, we can do it that way. Yeah, an optional way, another way is to use the ETL job. The nature is the same, batch job.
Okay. So there is another question on here, I guess, on number 2.
Mhm.
So you had mentioned that to be the double sure, you will make sure that only the client rep can add users to the account team, right?
I did not. I did not. I did not actually mention that. If only they are allowed, then we have to prevent the assistants from adding people to account team. In that case, we can use the trigger on the account team to prevent that.
Okay. Yeah, you had used the word doubly sure, and that's why I wanted to check what you meant by that. And also there were a couple of places where you had mentioned signed URL, if you, because you had shared the reports to the customers and you had mentioned about signed URL. So how do you generate signed URL and how does it work? Can you explain?
Yes, AWS S3 has support signed URL as long as we get the client the client name and the password. We can even do that in Apex. I've seen sample code to do that. But in our case, we have the ESB. We're going to have ESB to dynamically generate the signed URL of a S3 file.
So in
So
terms,
you're suggesting files for fund reports. Could you think of any alternate solutions?
Yes.
Files.
If we do not use files, maybe we want dynamic reports like what we have at the popular websites like Fidelity and Vanguard. In that case, a lot of data is involved and a lot of computation also. In that case, I would use a Canvas app and surface it in Salesforce.
Hey guys, I think we are out of time. We can continue.
Yeah, but welcome to ask. Yeah, because I want to be asked here and not to be surprised in the real board.
Let's continue a few more minutes.
Yeah, but I didn't understand the signed URL. Can you explain me how, as a user, I would know whether it is going to be the signed URL, how will that get generated, and all those?
Oh, yes, thank you. The user experience. We're going to put a LWC command LWC component over there. The LWC will say monthly performance report, and then when the user click on that, and then the controller is going to dynamically get the signed URL and show it on the LWC as a button, download report, and they click on that, they can download the report.
So you had mentioned that you will use the username password for generating the signed URL, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How will you get the password of the user to generate the signed URL?
That's generated by that's handled in AWS. Any integration user to AWS would have to get a username and a password, and we can put the credentials in ESB and make sure it is they are secure.
And credentials of system user, you mean, or the user who is trying to access the report?
We're going to use system user for this.
Okay. So there would be a generic system user, and that credential you will use to generate the signed URL. And then that signed URL would be clicked by the customer who wants to see the report, and he would be able to see that, because then where are you verifying the signature?
Where I'm verifying the signature on the URL, that's verified on the AWS side.
But the customer is not touching the AWS, right? So your generic system user is talking to the AWS, but the customer, external customer, is trying to see the report which is present in AWS. How will that happen?
Yes. So when they click on the button show report, we're going to under the hood we generate the URL. It's a URL, and then we make that as a link or button. When the user click on that, they are only using the signed URL to download a report.
Okay.
Fund reports can be accessed by all users, but the investment plan reports have specific security needs. So if you are using a system user, an integration user, how do you prevent specific or certain users from accessing investment plan reports?
I'd like to read that requirement. Which one is that?
Which is third requirement in this page.
Oh, third requirement. Okay, this one. Not this.
Investment plan and investment
Oh, this
plan
one.
report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the investment plan. First, investment plan is a custom object. It have the same security requirement as basic client information. So we make it a child object of account. So it's this one. And the investment plan performance report is reviewed by an LWC component on the investment plan detail page. So we will control who have access using Apex controller.
You have got two external objects here.
Yes.
Any security consideration you may have?
Yes, definitely there's a security consideration. Given that I'm assuming this is archived for investigation purpose, so I'm assuming only internal users need to use this. So when we set up external data sources, we need to select a named credential. On the named credential, we need to select identity type. There are two types. Do we use principal, named principal, or we use per user? Well, internal users. For internal users, we can actually use per user, but I think that's an overkill. A principal is fine because only people who manage the account will be able to even see these records. Now we use named principal for another reason. In case external object is accessible by external users using a Lightning community. Lightning community customer users have no way to set up to authenticate to an external system. So we need to use named principal. Then we can handle security either using LWC with Apex running in system mode to give them the access, or we can use a custom HTTP header on the external data sources to handle security.
Yeah. So on that question, so let's say for external users, you said that the way you are explaining the solution that you will have the external objects anyway, but for external users, you are saying that you might use named credentials, named principal to fetch the data, which are there in external object. And then on top of that, you are going to have the LWC to fetch the data from the external object to show it to the external customers, right?
Yes, the external customer would have no access to this object, and when they need to see records of this object, we are using LWC with Apex running in system mode to get the records for them.
Yes, a named credential is also making a call, right, to the backend system to get the data on real time, on runtime when it loads, right?
Yes.
So why can't you directly call system from the LWC if you're proposing LWC for the external users? Why?
That's a great question. In my point of view, external object is a configuration only option, so it's good. And for design purposes, it's also good. It helps us to do all the analysis we need. If we need to change that to a mashup pattern using IWC with Apex doing Apex callout, then it's easy to convert it to that way.
No, the reason I asked you because you were saying that for internal users also you are proposing named principal based identity, right? Not the per user based.
Yeah, if it is internal users, we can actually use use per user identity type.
But you said that's an overkill, right? You mentioned.
I believe this is an overkill for system integration. A named principal is fine for me.
So what is your recommendation, which will work in both the case for external and for internal?
name the principal.
Okay, that was it from me.
Thank you.